I wanted to talk about the last 10 years of my life, literally starting on October 27th, 2010. And a little background information. I've actually been in the IT field for roughly about 10 years, and change in that has never been something really new for me. I've done changes before and that sort of thing, but what I found in 2010 was that I'd been at a job for about 5 years and I enjoyed it. I really did, but I had to sit down with the owner of the company that I was with, a very small company in Fort Collins, Colorado, and we determined that there really wasn't any kind of way to grow beyond what we were doing without taking on a different type of customer base and things like that. And so I knew I needed to make a change because I had ambitions to be not only just making more of an income, but also to be making more of a contribution and using the, at that time, technical skill sets that I had to more degree. And so I decided to go ahead and start pursuing other options. And the thing I found was that there was a few opportunities, some locally there in Colorado, one that was very attractive in the Chicago area. It was attractive because it was a much larger environment than I'd ever been a part of before. And so I knew it would be a great learning opportunity. And so after a couple interviews with some various places, ultimately the one in Chicago won out. And so on October 25th, 2010, I actually packed up my car with a bunch of strategically placed items and went for it and drove out to the Chicago area. Naperville, Illinois actually is where I ended up at the hotel there, and unpacked my car, and there I was, ready to start. And so the thing with that is I left my wife Evie behind to well, for a couple reasons. One, this really was just a temporary job. We weren't really sure if this was going to be a long-term fit, if we wanted to actually make the move to the Chicago area. We weren't sure of that. And, we weren't sure if the job was going to work out and all that kind of stuff. And so we really just took that risk and said, okay, let's go ahead and go for the job, but let's not risk everything. Let's not risk moving out completely and all that, all that kind of stuff right away. We'll just kind of take this one step at a time. And so that's what we did. So the plan was to work this new job and live in a cubicle for a while, and then just be in a hotel room for whatever length of time. And my hair is bothering me today. I don't know what it is. I think it's spent too much time not flowing properly in the wind. I had it tied up to well, I'll tell you why in a minute, but we'll get to that part of the story because yeah, very, very cool that this all happened on the 10-year anniversary. I'll tease you with that we're going to be saying something that's just blows my mind that happened 10 years from 2000 October 27th, 2010. And if you're just joining us, I am talking today about my last 10 years, the journey, what I've learned, and just generally cool things for the next 53 minutes. We'll be talking more about this. So thanks for hanging with me. Yeah, cool. So the job itself was something where being in a Jeff says he won't spoil the mystery. Jeff is already seeing pictures of what's going on here, so it's kind of cool. So what I'll say is that the job was a huge shift. What I was doing previously had been, working for a lot of different companies as a kind of you could say like a service technician or like a services provider, that sort of thing. But I had a lot of relationships and a lot of things. But my day didn't really revolve around a single desk. My day was going around and driving to a client and visiting with them and working with them. And so I'd usually see between 2 and 6 clients in a single day. So it was a big shift to move to a cubicle. And sometimes you find in life that what can look really good on paper and can go really well and is exciting and new doesn't mean it's always the right fit. And that's what I found in my life, that even though the company I was working for was fine and all that kind of stuff, I was having a hard time. That and combined with some other things that was going on in 2010, I had to stop being a disc jockey because I hurt my back. And so when you combine, medications like I had to be on with a cubicle environment, my it was like, just like being stuck in this lethargy. It was awful. Also, not fighting in Chicago's favor that year was a one of those what they call 100-year storms or whatever, that happened in the winter of 2010 to 2011. It kind of flowed over the New Year holiday. Actually, it was really really bad, and the snow accumulations were just immense to make it so that I was stuck in a. Fortunately, that at that point, my wife had moved out there with us, and so we were in an apartment, but still, it was a big shock for us to be even in the suburbs of Chicago, and just buried in snow and not be able to go anywhere. And it was a bit much for us, even though people think, oh, you're from Colorado, you're used to snow. Not like this. Not even close like this. In Colorado, we can just push the snow out of the way. In the Chicago area, you can't really push the snow anywhere. If you're pushing it anywhere, it's going to be on top of somebody's car, and that's exactly what happened. So it was just not something I was really ready for, in that regards. And so, um, snow aside, honestly, what I found was that it wasn't the right fit for me. And it turns out that the company agreed and chose not to renew my contract. Now, the funny thing about that is that, I was looking back through my calendar and things like that, and I had already started looking for other opportunities, both in the Chicago area and back in Denver and, all sorts of places like that. But actually, I had intended to give my notice that I was going to be leaving, in 2 weeks, on the following Monday. The reason I didn't give it on a Friday is because it was April 1st, April Fool's Day. But as it turns out, because that was the end of the 6-month agreement, and they and a Friday, the end of the whatever period, they actually let me go on that day. So I got let go on April Fool's Day, which was, kind of funny, but, that's sometimes that happens. I tell people all the time, if you're going into independent consulting or even just, more appropriately, even just going into doing contract work, keep in mind it is a contract that is very severable. And even if they really like you, it doesn't mean they're going to keep you. And so, in this case, I wasn't doing myself any favors. And yeah, it wasn't really a great fit long term. So I moved on from that, I guess you could say. But, and I'm going to grab, and I forgot to do this properly. I didn't grab the book I need. Give me just a moment. I'm going to go back to my bookshelf and grab a very important book. So, there I was in my despair and, uh, not really despair, but just wondering, okay, what was next? And the, I think this was about a couple weeks before I, was going to turn in my resignation that I actually, did this, and grabbed this book by Dan Miller called 48 Days to the Work You Love. And this actually was the 2010 revised edition that had just come out, if I recall correctly. Hopefully I do. But, this book, uh, radically changed the way I was looking at work. It was said, okay, this is, I'm approaching this from I realized I was positioning, as a kind of a scarcity thing where there's just like, there's only so much to go around, who am I to get the best jobs and that sort of thing. And there was all sorts of things that were in my mindset at that time that really weren't correct. And reading this, I didn't even get through the 48 days process. Actually, is the dirty truth. I know there's some people in the, 48 days community that are probably watching this right now because I, posted it there and I was gonna let them know anyway. But, the truth is that first go around, I actually didn't even finish reading the book. I already had a new job, within a um, few days actually. And so I immediately began working as a bench consultant is what I think they called it at the time, or something along those lines, for Citrix Consulting Services. And so I was able to go from, just managing small environments in, a small, little city in Colorado to a big, helping to manage a big environment in the Chicago area. And then right from there, I'm getting on a plane every uh, either Monday or Sunday, Sunday night or Monday morning, whichever worked out typically, and coming home on Thursdays. And I got to tell you, um, it radically changed everything to shift into that kind of a consulting mode as a married person. Now, back in 2000, 2001, actually 2000 to 2003, I was on planes a lot. It was not uncommon for me to be on a plane and going somewhere. The difference was I didn't have anybody at home that was, wanting to keep up the kind of relationship that a marriage requires. And so we immediately had to learn a lot about how to communicate. Now, fortunately, we kind of had one thing in our back pocket, and that was when I was in Chicago by myself, we made it a point to schedule times to meet and to discuss our days and just to talk, just to communicate. We actually, um, yeah, I'll tell this story. So I'll back up a second and go back to October 26th, 2010, or sorry, October 25th, 2010. Um, I actually was listening to uh, the Four Love Languages from uh, Dr. Gary Chapman, not the singer Gary Chapman, the psychiatrist Gary Chapman. But that book really just kind of just hit me upside the head and realizing that I was doing a lot of things very wrong. And so at one point, I remember pulling over, just crying, and I called Evie, and I was just like, "I'm such a horrible husband," and all that kind of stuff. And so, she thought I was like dying or something. But yeah, so yeah, a little tip for that. But but I gotta say that preparation was something that actually helped us get into a good mode when it came to me just suddenly dropping in the consulting mode. But we immediately found that really living in Chicago wasn't anything necessary. I mean, it really uh, didn't benefit us at all. In fact, the the time it took to get to where we lived in Wheaton to get to either of the airports in Chicago, it actually took longer to get to those airports than it did from Fort Collins to Denver, which, as you know, or may not know, that's actually a significant difference in distance. But the time it took to get to either place was longer and less predictable. And so ultimately we said, most of our family's in Colorado. We have all the friends there still. And so we ended up moving back to Colorado almost immediately. Actually, there wasn't much time where we considered staying in Chicago long term. We just said, you know what, we're going to go in faith that everything will work out, and at least we'll have some people backing us, this kind of thing. So yeah, that was a pretty big deal to make that shift. And that's one of the first things that I would say as a takeaway when it comes to making a big shift in your career is having that support, having somebody to help you along the way, and whether that's a spouse or even friends and that sort of thing. It's really a huge thing that I learned. Now, why that's significant is that I am very much a bootstrapper. Now, I can't actually see who's viewing. All I can see is who is making comments. So I don't know if you know this about me, but my background, going back even further, is that my parents moved us to a place with no electricity, running water, all that kind of stuff, back in the mid '80s. And so I actually lived without, running water, electricity for um, a good 8, 9 years. And so I kind of had this weird thing that came out of that where it's very much willing to stand up and bootstrap just about anything. There's a lot of, you know, living off of duct tape, I guess I could say. But at the same time, there's this attitude of, nobody's going to do this for me. I have to do this. This is when it comes to, like, if you don't cut the firewood, then you will freeze. Yeah, it kind of sets your mindset a little bit differently. And so I had that attitude, but what the side effect of that was that I was in things alone, and uh, financially, what I had to do to get through college, that was really kind of troublesome, and I had to work really hard because, you know, being the smart and intelligent person that I am, I picked a small liberal arts college and went out of state and all that kind of stuff. And so my college bill was substantial, and so I had to work my way through that. And so yeah, I don't think I recommend necessarily that. I'm sure I recommend college actually at this point in the world. But anyway, that's something where ever have something catch on the corner of your eye? I just saw that somebody posted a picture of my book and it's being flagged for sensitive material by Twitter. That's absolutely fascinating. Thanks, Twitter. I appreciate you thinking of my book as sensitive or offensive material. That's nice to know where we stand there, Twitter. Appreciate it. But anyway, Brian, if you're listening, thanks for that tweet. Appreciate it. Tangent. Yeah. There's going to be plenty of rabbit trails over the next 20 minutes or the next 40 minutes. Guarantee it. So anyway, the point is that I realized that even though my tenacity and things like that get me to a lot of places, ultimately you always need somebody to support you, and you always need to have somebody that's going to be able to be a help to you and a support to you. Otherwise, when you're in a situation like consulting work, it's really tough. I mean, I very quickly found that while the money was very, very much better than I'd ever found. In fact, yeah, I'll talk about goals in a minute here and all that kind of stuff. But what I found with the consulting work, though, especially with the amount of travel that it definitely used to entail, I think that's cutting back these days. But when I used to have to travel, to various cities all across the United States, all within a single month, I might see 4 different cities in a month, crisscrossing the nation quite literally. It tends to wear things down for you, and if you don't have a reason to do it, then it's hard to justify. And so it's not a life for everybody, for sure. But honestly, what it changed for us was a lot of really huge things. And so back in 2009, I started to have conversations with people about, what could be done with this Citrix thing that I was becoming a kind of rapidly almost obsessed with. And what I found was that a lot of people could be what was called like an architect, which is a kind of like a recognized position where you know how the stuff works and you design the solutions for people. And yeah, it's just a much more senior position. And I knew I had the years, but I didn't feel like I had the requisite knowledge to do it for big environments. That's why I took the job in Chicago, actually, is because it was a bigger environment. I could actually, you know, make sure I was good, kind of thing. But my goal was to have that kind of a title in like 2 to 5 years. What I found immediately was that the people that had that title knew pretty much what I knew. In fact, some knew a little bit less. So there's that. But anyway, I found very quickly that, instead of, waiting for my goals because I had said it would take this long, I had this mental kind of thing going on where I wasn't going to, refer to myself as that just because I, had it in my mind that it was going to take that long. And again, mindset is really important. uh, Being able to just jump forward with that and leapfrog what I thought was going to take years in a matter of months. And from an income perspective, the cool thing about the consulting work was that, well, from a numbers perspective, it can get really overwhelming. Because if you're doing it the way I was doing as a third party consultant, which means you are, basically just getting a raw rate. There's no taxes taken out. You're responsible for all the taxes and stuff like that. So the numbers look super impressive, so from those kind of numbers, it was really good. But just from what I was able to keep at the end of the year after, that not so voluntary thing we do at the IRS every year, or in my case, monthly, quarterly kind of things. But what I was able to keep was more than double my salary the previous year. And the next year it doubled again. And the next year it doubled again. It was one of those just mind blowing things where if you get out of your own way, these things really can be there. Now, a lot of that was just raw luck, which is why I've decided to take a step back these days and start doing things like writing and speaking and things like that that are more encouraging for people that teach them how to do this and avoid some of the pitfalls that I went through. Uh, but honestly, I've been just so incredibly blessed by all the things that I've learned over the years in terms of going from just being an employee to um, yeah, suddenly being a consultant. And then interestingly enough, I have actually gone back and forth. There's the other thing I was going to kind of talk about is learning my limits. And again, being such a bootstrapper, you put a bunch of support behind somebody like that, and what ends up happening is that they really want to go for everything, and now all of a sudden the fires are lit kind of thing, the Gondor calls for aid, and let's go. So what happened in my life with that was, very much like, wow, I can do all this, let's go, go, go. And the more I absorbed and the more I learned, the more I got put in front of higher and higher end consulting things. In fact, within the first, I would say 6, 7 months, they approached me about being and what they call a resident consultant, which basically means that I wasn't seeking I could do other things, but Citrix was always going to be my first priority. And so I was going to just be helping their teams so I went from just a couple of months of not knowing what I was doing as a consultant to now all of a sudden I'm teaching other consultants how to be consultants, basically, and managing them from the technology standpoint and helping them achieve their career goals, which is really kind of amazing when you think about it, just to get into that. But I very quickly discovered that with that came a higher end of or higher cadence, I guess you could say, of projects. I didn't tend to have a lot of time between projects where I was doing very much senior work and had a lot of responsibilities. And how mistakes sometimes just kind of stack up. Well, that's exactly what happened in my life. Is that I started making some mistakes that made it so that it was very difficult. And at one point, there was uh, it's something I actually talk about in my latest book. It's called I call it the Summer of Hell, because that really is where it got really out of control and really bad. But there were some other good things that happened too. Um, Almost right away in 2012. Well, yeah. So I guess we're up to 2012 now. I was actually sent to Brazil to do a longer term consulting engagement there. So nothing like having all expenses paid in Brazil. It was a great time. Spent about a month and a half, 2 months in Brazil. Um, Again, the communication cadence became very important, especially when you're in a foreign country and you don't really speak the language. Uh, Brazilian Portuguese is a bit of a challenge. By the time I was leaving, I was starting to pick up a lot of things well enough and could even, you know, properly, say thank you for the breakfast and, order a very fattening drink. It's pretty much mostly sugar and rum, or white rum, I should say. Um, it's kind of a thing. So yeah, that was really cool. But then going on to just being kind of the go-to person for a lot of contracts that just like kept me zipping back and forth across the nation. Eventually, like I said, led to what I called the Summer of Hell, where I had a stack of what we call infrastructure assessments. These are um, documents that are created after a week of work, where you just go observe a company for a week and look into their systems, and then you determine what courses of action they should take, what risks they have, recommendations that the consulting team wants to make, and that sort of thing. And so this is also where me, being somebody who is relatively detail oriented about certain things and was digging in to find things that not everybody would have seen, um, doing honestly better work than a lot of some other consulting teams were doing, which was always good for me. It always kept me on demand and able to kind of raise my rates on a fairly consistent basis. But there are limits, and sometimes you realize that there's a certain pace that comes with that kind of work, or any kind of work, really. I mean, this is always there's always something, right? Everybody's got a threshold point, and recognizing that threshold point is really important. But if that's not something you can actually overcome, if it's beyond your ability to get past, and in this case, it really was. I mean, it was one of those things where um, it was just exhausting to have so much going on upstairs. Um, just not a lot of sleep, that sort of thing, getting on planes and flying everywhere. And eventually I just said, you know what, I need to step back from this for a bit. We've got plenty saved up at this point. We're out of debt. We've done the trip to Hawaii. We did a trip to New Zealand and Australia. There's all these things that we'd been wanting to do, and we've done them now. And maybe I should just back off a little bit. And so I actually went to work for a company locally. Again, another contract. It was one of those things where it's just like, let's just take a contract for a while, just be here, and you just have the faith that if we go back, or that we can go back. Now, interestingly enough, I had said my goodbyes to Citrix. I even made this like video. Maybe I can find the link to the YouTube video that I put up. If Journey hasn't taken it down for whatever copyright things. But I actually, I'm gonna in the background, I'm gonna see if I can find this video and pull it up, at least a link, and find. Oh, I was already on the YouTube page, like a dummy. The um, the video itself was I was taking the words to I don't want to spoil it, a certain song, and was putting them on this tablet, and I was putting the words up uh, in each city I was in, and so kind of a fun, kind of a fun way to go about that. And I am failing at this miserably, and I apologize. You'd think I'd know all the YouTubes by now, um, but not always like that. So it's one of those things where I did this kind of as a goodbye. Like okay, I don't know if I'm going to be back. I'm not even sure I want to come back. Here's a video to my wife thanking her for all of the support over the uh, crazy crazy times. So let me see if I can put this up in like a chat window thing, or like you know, write that down. So the song's "Faithfully" by Journey, and so it's their lyrics being put up on screen. It's one of my favorite things, and it was one of those kind of cool things that I did with my wife. That yeah, very much a thank you. But I'd said my goodbyes and then went on to a cubicle job. And even though it was an architect cubicle job, at the time I didn't recognize that it really was the cubicle thing that bothered me. I thought maybe it was the work or something like that. Well, it turned out that really that was not true. And so at the end of that contract, I terminated it. I said, okay, I don't want to, pursue this. And so I actually went back to do some work with Citrix again, and came back on. This time not as a resident consultant, but actually as a what we call a bench consultant. So I was, yeah, still plenty busy. It just meant more paperwork and more ability to take time off. So it was a good balance. And so I stayed with that for I think roughly a year or so, and then decided a change of pace might be good, and went to work for a Citrix reseller, or a technology reseller that did Citrix, Cisco, and a bunch of other vendors. And so it's kind of fun to switch gears and explore that part of things too, of being okay, taking all this technical authority I have and all this consulting experience and putting it to work for customers you actually want to build a relationship with. And that was something else I found out about myself, is that I'm very much a relationship person. I very much want to, have people in my life. It's like, that's why I enjoy doing things like this. It's much more personal. It's good to see your I can't see your smiling faces, obviously, but you can chat with me and tell me how you're doing and things like that, and I can respond, right? So it's more of a relationship. I dig that. But as a consultant, what you're doing is you're dropping in, you're fixing some things and you're leaving, or you're dropping in, giving some opinions and leaving. But that leaving part is always the key thing. There is like, you're always leaving. So yeah, kind of a weird dynamic there, I understand. But bottom line is that you just have to, sometimes you have to explore to know what you're going to be best suited for. And that's the other thing that I was going to say as a lesson learned, is it's good to explore jobs when you don't need the job, if that makes any sense. Like, if you've got a kind of a layer of savings, like say 3 to 6 months of expenses saved up, you're in a much better position to figure out what kind of a job will really work for you and what ones won't. And so being able to just, you know, take on different things and, yeah, just see if it's going to be a good fit. And honestly, I actually really enjoyed working for a partner for quite some time. Ended up doing it again, actually. But uh, what I found though was that there was just certain things about the work that weren't quite what I wanted either. And there's a certain pace that I was used to, and a certain even the travel. I started to miss the travel, which sounds disgusting when you say it. I mean, I realized earlier this about a month ago actually, that I have been on 2 planes for the entirety of 2020, and given what I just told you, that's really, really messed up. That's just not even normal. So to only be uh yeah, go from like 100,000 miles a year to, you know, what would that be like, a couple thousand is it can be a shock to the system at any time you do it. And so that was the kind of thing with this, was going from, you know, being on a plane every week to maybe, 4 or 5 times a year. So yeah, anyway, that was a bit of a thing where I just realized that that was part of my life that I enjoyed. Just, should I explore other reasons for it? And that's the other thing I started doing. But anyway, to come back to, gosh, where are we at here? 2015, 2016. They all start to run together after a while. But what I started doing was starting to explore more independent consulting. In other words, doing work with Citrix when it was convenient for me instead of convenient for them. And, so it still happened a lot. Don't get me wrong. But I started exploring, working with other partners and other folks, and even taking on my own clients and that sort of thing. So it was a lot of fun. So I actually really enjoyed that element of discovery of, how do you do client relationships now, and business to business in that kind of regards, and do I like it? And you know what I determined? No, I don't like it. I found that my personality, while I'm fine with maintaining relationships, I don't necessarily want to be the one that's always going out and, that hunter gatherer kind of thing. I'm not the one that wants to go, pitch services and things like that. It's not my default setting. In fact, I have today another thing I need to do after we get off here, that is exactly that, a pitch I need to make for from some services. But it's not a comfortable thing for me. It's something where I really have to dig into a different kind of uh, skill set, I guess you could say. But it's not primary. So that is another thing that I found, was that I'd already learned to respect my boundaries. Now I needed to learn to work within my strengths and not within my weaknesses. And that actually was a pattern that set up for quite a few other bits of discovery. In 2016, I was working, well, again, independently. And so I had several clients that I was working with and that sort of thing. But one of them was really just wanting my time all the time. I was doing between 40 and 60 hours a week with these folks. I mean, it was a really, it was obvious that going really well, and that they were, obviously we had a good Citrix people forgive the pun. We had good synergy. In fact, they actually sent me to synergy, if I recall. Um, so it was kind of cool. And they were here in Nashville, and so my wife and I started talking about, okay, well, obviously there's some things going on in Nashville that are kind of cool. We'd have a support if we went there. I wouldn't have to be on a plane all the time, but I can still do things independently and just kind of find a balance point. And that was a big reason. The bigger reason, though, was I really started to realize that I didn't want to be the tech guy forever. I didn't want to always be the guy that just was there to, um, I, it's that one-to-one relationship that, I knew that that was good for me in some ways, but I knew that I naturally thrive. I'm just going to keep the puns coming here, folks. Thrive IT is the name of the new company, but those of you watching on YouTube are seeing that already, but the others might not. But anyway, so the cool thing about that was realizing that my ability to speak more broadly to people, to do, whether it be public speaking or things like that, led me to start saying, what if I just taught people what I know, not just doing what I know, but actually teaching people? Can I add that into my kind of stack? And that's where I discovered a gentleman named Michael Hyatt. And Michael Hyatt happens to live up the road here from me. Um, Introduced me to a whole world of people that are doing this, not working for another company to do it, but actually making their own business and being kind of that digital entrepreneur, of sorts of whatever, where you are running your own platform and that sort of thing. And so that is something that fascinated me and scared me at the same time, which I knew that meant immediately, it's something if I was afraid of it, I had to go for it, right? That may not come out in the video. Let me see if that's backwards or not. No, it's not. Let me show you my shirt. It's a microphone in the way. I can't win today. It says fear is a liar because fear is a liar. And so, way to go, Deej. Uh, so the um, the thing about that, facing that of a whole new way of going, I knew I didn't have to jump in both feet. I knew I could kind of build this over time. So that's exactly what I wanted to start doing. And so with that, I started to look at some things that the other people that Michael Hyatt was in their world, and got introduced to other people that, it's kind of funny how many of them I'm now actually friends with. And so it's kind of amusing when you have I mentioned Dan Miller. I'm helping out with his community these days, and we had lunch a few months ago now, I guess it was, but that's been cool. A gentleman named Cliff Ravenscraft, who is my coach. That's kind of awesome. Getting to know uh, Pat Flynn is another person that's a big influencer that I've been doing more and more with his group and things like that. So it's been really great to to get into this at these levels and kind of ease myself into it. But one of the things that Michael Hyatt had said is that, gosh, there's a lot of these digital entrepreneurs that are here in the Nashville area. And so if you're really serious about it, you should consider moving to the Nashville area. And interestingly enough, I didn't realize that Franklin was where he was actually from, and that a lot of these people that he's talking about were actually here in Franklin, um, Dan Miller included, actually. So when we came out to um, Nashville, the area to Franklin, Brentwood, which is just north of us here, um, it was to visit this company that I was doing a lot of work with, and they had invited me out to their Christmas party and things like that. So like, sounds like a great idea. I figured, why not? It's a good thing to visit, and so we were immediately smitten with the area, and we're like, yeah, this would be a pretty cool move. And so we said, you know what, let's look at this for, maybe late 2017, 2018 timeframe. We'll start working our way towards that move. And kind of decided that. Well, they asked me back again in, I think it was January or February, something like that, and wanted me to come on staff as a director of technology. So again, if you're sensing a pattern here, it's fully appropriate that, okay, there's a difference here. This is another thing that I can kind of explore. I'd been in positions where I was working for a company, and all this kind of stuff and knowing the technology, but what they really wanted was someone who could run the practice. So not just from a technical standpoint, but also from like staffing and procedures and things like that I'd never really done a lot of. And so I figured that was another good way to explore, or to jump in and go for it. And so that's exactly what I did. I jumped in and went for it. So um, yeah, it was fantastic to have that opportunity. Um, Ultimately, as I said in another video that actually kind of ended not as great as any of us wanted to, but fortunately, I'm still friends with all of them and all that kind of stuff, and it's all good. But there's a lot of learning there too, and ultimately, what I realized is that there's certain things that I enjoy more than others, and so that brings me to today. And so, what happened today was I got the wrong copy in front of me. You can see it right behind me. This new book. Well, let's back up a second. Hang on a second. We'll slow your roll, Deej. What's up with that? I forgot to talk about the first book. Here it is, 2020. Lockdown. Supposed to be like, cowering in our homes and whatever. And so I was like, no, we're gonna write a book. So, or publish a book. This is already pretty much written. I'd been sitting on it in 2019. So 2020, I declared back in, I think it was December of 2019, I declared 2020 as the year of taking big risks. And so this book, Be a Citrix Hero, is my first self-published book. And it has been very well received, and I am very thankful for that. I was able to kind of put some things into take all my consultant knowledge and kind of put this into a book. And how fantastic is that? Where I can just share this with people, and they can buy it and read it, and their life is enriched. A pretty good exchange actually when you're talking about some of these things. I know my friend Benjamin said, "Dude, this is like you can save your company tens of thousands of dollars by doing this stuff, if they just focus in on this kind of stuff." And I'm like, yeah, you can. I tell these people, these are not unusual things for me. These are all based on recommendations that I've been making as a consultant for several years. And so it was a natural fit for me to just write them out. It wasn't, when I'm really being honest, it wasn't a hard book to write. But what was a more difficult book to write, mostly because of the timing and just because it's really stepping out on a limb and taking that risk. Back in 2017, for November, so National Novel Writers Month, or NaNoWriMo, is something that goes on every November. So instead of writing a novel, I decided to write a book teaching what I know. The funny thing about that is, at this company here in the Nashville area, one of the things that I'd put in place was a methodology to cover everything. And so basically I just took a lot of things that I'd learned with Citrix and some other companies that I'd worked with, and kind of looked at that and said, okay, let's try making this a little more simplified and make the language we use around it simple, and make it so that the salespeople can fully explain this without having to bring a consultant along to explain their consulting process. And as you're probably going to guess, it was a huge hit. It was absolutely a knockdown kind of thing. It was just a game changer for the way we did business. And so I knew I had something on my hands. But again, when you kind of end up ending an employment not the way you want to, it kind of knocks the wind out of your sails a bit, and that mindset has to come back in. But what ended up happening was I shelved this book for a length of time. I'd say about a year and a half. So it sat there, the manuscript fully pretty much done, just not edited. And I just, didn't feel like putting it to market. I didn't feel like it was something that the world wanted or needed. And I am really, really glad that I finally got around to actually publishing this. Not just as a bit of kind of closure, I guess you could say, but also because I came to realize it's like, just like with the Be a Citrix Hero book, this is something that really can benefit a lot of people, like a lot of people. And this is basically me teaching you everything that was said in the last, hour, all those lessons that I learned over that 10-year period. That's what's in here. And it's kind of cool. Is I could just, again, it's natural. I just write it. When I'd say I wrote this in a month, that's actually true. Wrote in a month, took me 3 years to publish it, but it's all good. So today, actually marks in 2017. It's funny how the 27th is just become this magical day with me. And that is that, this is actually the day I started to, write down the organization for the project they became Just Do This. Originally I was calling it risk less methodology, which I'd still kind of use that term, but I realized that this is, that kind of simplified. I wanted something that wasn't a huge book. I wanted something much smaller, that could be, to get to the point, let's go kind of a thing. And that's what I wanted to do. So that's exactly what I did. So today, is there a way for me to share? I'm trying to think if there's a way for me to share like a picture. Might not be able to. Let me see if I can pull this up while I'm talking here. But today I put into my or got a call. I warned them it was coming, but had the experience of taking 1,000 books off of a delivery truck and putting them into both of our cars. You want to talk about Providence? These 63 books or 63 boxes that have 1,000 books in them fit exactly into the back of our Lexus, and interestingly enough, the trunk of the BMW, which is kind of fun, right? Because it's just kind of funny how that works out sometimes, where things work exactly the way you want them to. And so I'm hoping that this is uploaded and I can actually show this. Do we have, yes, okay. Now we're going to test out the ability for me to share my screen. Share that. Hallelujah. Okay, so hopefully. Hello. How does that work? Ah, there we go. Just have to turn it on. And I can, yeah, so there's my car. There's the Lexus filled with these boxes. And it, like, exactly, couldn't really fit more in there. And then, let's see. Oh, hey, new kitties. That's Thor and Loki. Get back to that in a minute. But anyway, so this is the stack of boxes here in the garage, sitting there right now with nothing to do but be sold. And so, yeah, this is going to be a fun new part of the journey. And this is where the risks come in, because honestly, I just bought 1,000 of my own book to resell to people. My thought was, my hope with this is to be able to sign these and send them out to people that order. In fact, before we go, I'm going to be giving the winners of our contest in 2 minutes. Let me put this up on the screen here. If you're in IT or know somebody who's in IT, I have a lot of books that I want to make some room back for now that it's a thing. So absolutely want to give you a bundle. Now this bundle is actually, I don't have the hardback cover in front of me, but it's these 3 books. It's all 3. Now the cool thing was, there's a limited quantity of these, obviously, but also in the garage there is about 3 more boxes of this book that I was able to get from Dan. He was moving to Florida, and so he said, "Hey, I've got these boxes of books. Would you be interested in giving these out to people or reselling them or whatever?" And so they were cheap, and so I bought a bunch of them, and I'm including them with this bundle for anybody who buys. And so That's kind of cool. Feel free. Actually, I'm not going to say feel free. I'm going to ask you to write this link down and share it with people, because that actually helps me a great deal getting this out. But that's the way this is going to work. That particular bundle actually does work internationally. The only thing with internationally is I can't sign the books. I have to have them printed and drop shipped directly to individuals, but it's something we can do. So it's something we don't really make anything on that internationally because of the costs of shipping and everything like that, but it's something I'm still happy to do. At least I don't lose any money doing it. Let's put it that way. And so I'm happy to do that. And so feel free to do that. But if you're here in the US, this is definitely a great thing. So cool. All right. Now I'm doing a giveaway. Again, I'm just thrilled at how this has all worked out, that it's been this 10-year journey, all these kind of things. And it's all just like working on the same day without me really wanting to. I didn't force any of this. It just kind of happened this way. I wasn't actually expecting these books for another 2 weeks. So that's pretty cool that this all happened today. That's throwing me off my game a little bit, unfortunately, but I wanted to let you know that we have a contest running in celebration. That's, in fact, I call it the Saleabration. The paperback is on Amazon, and so I had that up for sale at a discounted price for about 10 days. And so in the midst of that, I also had like a contest to help spread the word about it. And so a couple of people signed up for that. The prize for that is actually a workshop that I'm going to be doing that's based out of a lot of the concepts here in the book that I mentioned, doing infrastructure assessments and things like that as kind of a big thing that I was known for, I guess you could say. But it was a big deal. So what I want to do is have this workshop where you will be able to learn in a single day what the I can't even talk, the major things that you need to know to make this successful. And so that is what we're going to be doing. So I'm going to be basically into 3 or 4 segments. I haven't fully decided what that's going to look like, but basically teaching people how to conduct interviews and schedule staff and those things, what kind of things to look for, and basically how to conduct an assessment like this, whether you are an employee of a company or whether you are a consultant that's doing this or working for a reseller or whatever. It doesn't really matter. The concept's still the same. You still want to do that first step of what we call understand in the book. We call it the understand part of the 4-part methodology. You want to do that. And then what you're going to do from there is present to management. So I'm actually going to have a bit of the workshop that's all about how to present to not only your tech audience, but also the management audience. In other words, how to talk to the C-suite about how to do these things and how to understand the technology just well enough to know what actions they need to take. And I find a lot of people in the technical world can actually just overwhelm, and the just managers in general, not to be in the C-suite, but the average CEO doesn't want to know everything you know about technology. They're already impressed with you. You were hired, right? So you don't need to impress them with what you know about technology. What they need to know is what they need to direct their staff to do. I'm already talking about it. Can you tell I'm excited? It's something where I'm actually really thrilled to be able to bring this out. And so that's a part of it. The next part of it is documenting. And so in the book, I talk about a spreadsheet that I've come to use, and I've kind of done some modifications. I didn't come up with the spreadsheet. It's been something that was kind of developed with Citrus Consulting several years ago, and this is kind of something that I just kind of modified over the years. And so it's a concept that it was kind of, I don't think there's any one person that came up with it and can take credit for it. It's been kind of iterating along the way and getting better and better. And so made some modifications with it to fit in with the methodology and with this class I'm teaching. So this is a great way to learn to use that as a tool, because it's fantastic to use to organize the risks and recommendations in such a way that you can present that to just managers, project managers, CEOs, CTOs, CIOs, that sort of thing, in a way that says, okay, we need to do these things first, then get these, and then prioritize and all that kind of stuff. That's really what they want. And then actually writing documentation about how to actually structure a document so that it's effective and not too short, but not overly verbose, just right. So that's what's coming. Now, I wanted to announce the winners of that workshop. By the way, that's going to sell for a little over $500 down the road. It's that tight of valuable information, and the way we're going to work through it is going to be hopefully life changing for a lot of people. So I'm excited about this. All right, are you ready? Ready for the winners? Chosen at random, even though well, we didn't have a ton of people. It wasn't like there was hundreds of people in this contest, but when you're giving away 5 of these, the odds are kind of fun. But when I look at the probability of winning, this first person had a 3.89% probability of winning, and his name was chosen randomly. Congratulations, Bill Nickerson, who this is kind of fun for me because he's actually gotten to see some of this in action. And so that's kind of fun to be able to hand this off. So congratulations to Bill. The next person is somebody who has been incredibly supportive and is going to be part of kind of a inner circle we're putting together as well. And so I'm very excited to give out the next winner, who had a 13.07% probability, which means he was very active and had a lot of sharing and that sort of thing. But Thomas Link from way across the pond. So I don't know if he's still awake. He might be. So congratulations to Thomas. Next up, I just realized the time, so I'm going to race through these. Jane Packer is our next winner. She had a 6.71% chance of winning. And so congratulations, Jane. Next, also reaching across a distance here. Carl, you're our next winner. He had actually the lowest probability of winning, but still managed to win. He had 3.53% chance of winning and still managed to pull it in there. So Carl, congratulations. And finally, Paul Willett has been a great supporter. I'm really glad you won. I'm looking forward to this. Paul's been very supportive, and so with a 12.37% chance of winning, won the prize. So congratulations to all my winners. And honestly, thank you all for all your support over the years. This last 10 years have been absolutely fantastic. What I'm going to be doing in the future, well, just go to thriveit.com, and there's lots about that on the tech space. We'll say in closing here that there's a lot I'm going to be doing in an expanded market as well. There's a lot, as you can tell, when I'm writing books like this, I'm taking my experiences and my knowledge and formalizing those into something that's like a framework that people can use. That's the kind of the way my mind works. Over the next few months, my intention is to put that forward into additional ways of looking at the other things that I've done in my life, all of these, the whole stretch of my life. And there's been a lot of lessons that I've learned. And so I am looking forward to getting that going. That may or may not be my November project, is to get that manuscript started. In fact, I think I'm excited enough about it that I'll probably just do it, even though it's going to distract me a little bit from selling this other book. But I think I'll probably do it anyway, just because it's November. But look for that in 2021. It's going to be a fantastic journey, along with some other things that we're going to start getting back up to speed now that we're done with the editing and publishing process, and can start going into some more automatic stuff that doesn't involve my direct efforts. So appreciate your support. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. And hey, Kimberly, how's it going? Feel free to reach out and even just say hi. I appreciate that too. But if you have any questions, let me know. For some of you, might be reaching out additionally for some opportunities and some ways we can grow together in a whole new way. So watch for some messages from me on that coming up soon as well. But for everyone else, remember my motto: in everything you do, leave it better than you found it. Cheers, everybody. Thanks again.